Linden MacIntyre, our guest, he's a primo journalist in this country, the dean of investigative journalism.
You can say that.
They say, and you won the Giller for The Bishop's Man, and we're quite surprised. Apparently, I read that your sister said, "You better get a bigger hat because now, now your head's swollen."
She said that. Yes.
You grew up surrounded by women.
I grew up surrounded by women who talked like that. Don't get too big for your breeches. And here I am winning the prize of prizes in Canadian literature, and this woman, who never wrote anything longer than a letter or a grocery list, is telling me, don't let your, get a new hat because your head is getting too big.
The irreverent sister.
Yes.
And you have 3 daughters?
I have 3 daughters.
Like women everywhere in your life.
My mother, and she raised us, my father was a drifting itinerant hard rock miner. And my mother basically ran the shop, and her hard-nosed mother came for half of the year, and her hard-nosed sister was just across the field on the other side, and she was raising kids by herself. So these were tough ladies, and I had early exposure, and they're of Irish extraction, and there's a particular kind of, shall I say, strength of character / cruelty among Irish women who have to run the show.
The Irish Catholic mama running the show. Now, your last book, the middle book, The Bishop's Man, is about a priest who, should he have been a priest? Don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
He became a priest for all the wrong reasons. He's Effie's brother. He grows up in a house without a mother, dysfunctional father, lots of conflict. And he reaches his teen years, and this is back at a time before we thought a lot before marriage about celibacy.
Celibacy, enforced celibacy.
Yeah, so he's a teenager, and he thinks, I want a family. I want a solid base in which to live. I want respectability. I'd like to have a code of conduct, and I want a sort of a symbolic mother, the Holy Mother Church.
Right.
He becomes a priest.
And you get instant recognition and instant fame, or instant acceptance.
Exactly.
More than anything. The priest in the small town, got to be a good guy.
And he's idealized this institution because, having looked at it in the small town context, he idealizes it as this perfect, perfect institution on the planet. So anyway, he gets into it and he discovers it's a human institution full of weak humans, corrupt humans, and that there's an awful lot of stuff going on in the name of that institution that offend him as an individual with a fairly solid sense of what's right and wrong.
And what gave you the nerve to write about sexual abuse in the Catholic Church in fiction, trying to get it published, number one?
Well, it wasn't so much that I set out to do abuse in the Catholic Church. I set out to do a story about the conflict within an individual when his personal sense of what's right and wrong collides with the morality of an institution.
Okay.
And the morality of an institution, it's kind of a bad mix of words. I mean, the morality of an institution is usually designed to serve the institution, the superficial interests of this institution.
Exactly, and when the institution is caught with trouble inside, the institution must face it.
Must face it. And
must not lie.
No, but what happens is that people within the institution whose interests are combined with, at the top of an institution, their interests are kind of combined with the well-being of the institution. So they say, well, for the good of the institution, wink, wink, my own personal benefit, we're going to cover this up. We're going to hide this. We're going to protect the image of the institution at all costs. And this is what Duncan found was happening in the Catholic Church, of all places. They find these scandalous situations. Now, I could have made him a banker, or a politician, or a police officer, or a TV reporter. I could have made him
the cult of the cop.
The cult of the cop, exactly. But I decided where he lived. You see, at the end of the day, the violation in sexual abuse is a violation of trust and abuse of power. It's a betrayal of people. And there's no greater betrayal than that. And there is no greater betrayal than the betrayal of a Catholic clergyman in that environment, because those people are the people with the highest status on the pedestal of trust.
Did you ever think of being a priest yourself as a young man?
I mean, growing up as a devout Catholic in a very devout Catholic environment, it is something that it is one of those things you go through. And I did in my early teens. I was completely inspired by missionaries. I was inspired by the you know, the message of an awful lot of the priests. I had down in Cape Breton, where you have a lot of poor people. I suppose I grew up in what would be considered third world conditions in many ways, and you're inspired by the Gospels that address social justice and fairness and equality among people. And so you absorb a lot of that, and you say, wow, that's for me.
Sure. Well, you're still helping people, but in a different way. Because if you're helping somebody get off death row or attempt to, or you're telling us a story that we don't know about covering the Airbus scandal.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
It's about relating to other people, and it's about living some kind of compassion for other people. And I eventually let the priesthood drop off because. I guess as George Stroumboulopoulos put it one day, he said, a girl walked by.
I see, a girl walked by, and you found another way to see the world.
Exactly, another way to see the world, and another with the girl.
Of course.
At the same time.
And you still have that girl.
Well, I had a lot
She's
of
a broadcaster in her own right.
Yes.
Back to why men lie.
Yes.
Do you know why?
Yes, men lie to get something. Men lie to prevent things happening or to make things happen. And what men want is some, essentially, the big thing is some assurance of their value. And our traditional value has always been to sort of run things and to sort of protect things. And in the most primitive sense of the word, our ability to do that is commensurate with our size and our strength and our bank accounts more recently and with our status. And so men will lie to achieve all those things and to protect all those things. And as life puts us in a position where we need more emotional security and reassurance, we will lie to get that.
My father called it responsible dishonesty.
Well, you see, we have to be careful, and I agree with him. Because you have to, I mean, there's a character in the book who says, I'm going to be upfront about the need for, I'm going to be very honest about the need for some deception. You know, life is all about small deceptions. The essence of civility, diplomacy, and politics is deception of some kind. So you have to decide about the motivation for the deception.
Sure, the backroom boys are meeting as we speak.
As we speak.
Here and in the United States of America, I mean, Joe Biden, vice president, comes out and says, I'm all for same-sex marriage, and the president, you can bet they had a little talk.
Yeah, you go out
Or maybe
first.
It was a ploy from the beginning.
Well, you know,
Could
Joe,
have been.
You know, the president says to Joe, your job is to go out there and say it, and if they throw too much at you, then I'll stay in here.
Right.
Well, Joe went out and said it. Talk about Catholics. Joe goes out and says it and gets away with it and gets a little, and so now the president can go out and say something that people were saying 30 years ago.
Exactly, and then somebody's crunching the numbers in the big political machine and saying, do we have enough gay people in America who will come out now and cast that ballot more than the religious right? Can somebody subtract those numbers, see how it goes?
We used to, in earthier part of my life, we had this great word that starts with B, and the second part of it is S.
Yeah, I know that
and
word.
we now use deception and deceit, and we use spin and all that stuff. But it all boils down to that one BS word. And so you talk lie. Why do men lie? Why do men bull? Why do men deceive, manipulate? Why do men acquire? It comes back to the same thing, because we're fundamentally afraid. And we're fundamentally in need of reassurance that we're going to get through the day, get through the week, and maybe get through the life.
Someone said to me, man's greatest fear of being left, fear of being abandoned. Why women lie, the next one?
Women tend to lie, and I'm not sucking up to you just because.
I mean the next book.
Oh, the next book. Next book is going to have none of this. Next book is going to be another aspect of kind of that over matter, we call it in journalism, stuff that I went into. It's going to be about law and order. It's going to be about justice and about what happens when people feel let down by the justice system and decide they're going to make their own justice. Okay,
well, we can't give this away, but there is a man on death row who's part of this, a Texan on death row, and it's all wrapped.
On death row in Texas, and I imported him out of my own journalistic experience.
I noticed. Thank you.
And he was
nice
wonderful.
to meet you. Linden MacIntyre, Why Men Lie, third in they called it a loose trilogy. I'm not sure what that means.
Very loose.
But it means you don't have to read The Bishop's Man to understand this one.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Okay.